The beginning explains the how and the why. Why we like what we like, want what we want, and see the world how we see it. So here is my beginning. I grew up the middle child of 3. I grew up with a very loving mother and both parents in the home, if you can call it that. My father came home very late every night, got up early and made it to work every day. On weekends, he didn't come home at all until Sunday night. And this was every weekend for all of my childhood. Maybe he slept at the club, or my young mind wasn't able to see the obvious, or I didn't let it. He was part owner of a bar in Brooklyn and a functional heavy drinker. I realized at an early age he'd rather hang out with the boys and drink and party and be with other women, rather than stay home with a woman that did not drink or smoke and the 3 girls he obviously didn't know what to do with. I'm sure he wanted boys, but he got us. I think I always wanted a father that I was close to because I had no brothers, and though my mother had over 7 brothers, she didn't really spend time with any of them very much during my childhood. My younger sister always lived as if she could do nothing without my mother. My oldest sister suffered from lupus, and she suffered hard during a time when there were no support groups or people talking about it. In fact, only one hospital in the Bronx could treat her, and it was very far from our Harlem apartment. Many evenings after school and Mommy got off work, we rode the city bus and did our homework on the long ride to take my sister to see her doctors. As I got older, I immediately gravitated towards the hazy psychedelic high I got from smoking weed because it helped me escape my thoughts and feelings when writing wasn't easily available to me. Because I often carried my family's issues on my shoulders, and many times my sister's sickness was too much to carry. I was young and doing my thing, hanging out with my girls and mostly being a third wheel until I met him at a late-night club in Harlem on Valentine's Day, and that's how it began. Getting to know somebody, you tell them about your family dynamics because that's what makes you the person you are. I told him I often felt like a thin piece of meat between 2 thick slices of bread. The bread was my sister's. I kept quiet because I always felt my mom had her cup filled to the rim with the issues of my 2 sisters. I always wanted to help her and never to stress her out. He told me he had a brother who died in the streets at the age of 15. Not by gangs or bullets met for him or random that often happens in the hood, but he was riding on his bike and a cab hit him. I could instantly see and feel his mother's pain running out of her building, screaming a scream that bounced off the project's walls, off the building's stoops, the gutter streets, and the ground. A mother's wail for a suddenly unalive son, her firstborn. For his family, that instantly changed everything as it should have. I remember a picture shown to me the first time I met his mom and sister of his mother leading her remaining 4 children in a prayer at the gravesite of her eldest child. We hear news stories, but when the lights go off of the reporter's camera, the flame of a mother's grief remains. Years later, she told me that every day at a certain time she would go to her window and always look out at the time that her son would usually come home on his bike. I'm sure she always saw his face and dreamed of conversations she wished she could still have with her son. I think that he and I were just 2 young souls from the hood with an instant connection born from shared trauma, a bond that drew us closer. And there wasn't a day that we went without seeing each other. Not one afternoon where we didn't link up after work, or an evening and weekend that we didn't spend time together. And like it is with most women, my friends became 2nd, 3rd, and 4th to him. And when I was with him, it was the only time I didn't focus all my thoughts on my oldest sister and her illness. We became inseparable, carving out our own space in a quiet Queens apartment. It was just us against the world until life threw a curveball I never saw coming.